Hello and welcome to Investment Insight. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Now let's break down what's happening in the markets today in a clear and simple way. I want you to think for a second about the kinds of viral AI-generated videos you might see while scrolling through your phone.
Oh yeah, like a hyper-realistic clip of a cat walking on the moon or something like that.
Right, exactly. Or maybe a politician saying something completely absurd. It feels like this fun, slightly chaotic internet toy.
It really does. But the reality under the hood is actually entirely different.
Yeah, and that's the core mission of our deep dive today. What if I told you that the exact same underlying technology used to make those bizarre deepfakes is, well, quietly morphing into a multi-billion-dollar industrial infrastructure?
It is a massive pivot. I mean, we are talking about software that is now being used to crash test virtual cars for massive auto manufacturers. And that happens before a single piece of steel is ever stamped.
Which is just wild to wrap your head around. But according to recent analysis, we can track this entire industrial shift by looking at one specific company, and that's Runway.
Right, Runway. They started out as a generative AI app. You type a text prompt and you get a short synthetic video clip back.
Simple enough.
Exactly. But looking at the data today, they are evolving into what the industry calls a world model company. And that specific shift is moving massive amounts of capital.
So we're going to unpack the mechanics of that shift for you today. If you're a beginner investor here in the US, or just someone trying to understand the baseline economics of this whole AI boon, this is absolutely the story you need to follow.
Oh, without a doubt. It's essentially like watching a company that started out manufacturing toy remote control helicopters suddenly transform into Boeing.
Right, like suddenly they're selling commercial jetliners to global airlines. The scale, the purpose, everything changes.
The economics completely change.
So to understand how that toy helicopter becomes a commercial jetliner, we first have to follow the money. Because the financial stakes in the generative AI space have completely detached from normal software valuations.
They really have.
Let's look at the numbers because they are staggering. Data from February 2026 shows Runway raised $315 million in a Series Z funding round.
Yeah, a massive influx of capital.
And that pushed the company's valuation to an eye-watering $5.3 billion. Okay, let's unpack this for a second.
Sure.
For a listener who's just starting to learn about economics, a $5.3 billion price tag for a private software startup seems, completely absurd.
Sounds like a bubble. Right.
Exactly. If a local coffee shop down the street is suddenly valued at $1 billion, I'm going to assume they've invented a coffee bean that brews itself and cures the common cold.
Yeah.
So what underlying mechanics actually justify a $5 billion valuation for a company that makes video clips?
Well, what's fascinating here is you're hitting on the core tension that institutional investors wrestle with every single day. To really understand that price tag, we have to separate Runway from traditional software companies.
Okay, how so?
So a standard cloud-based software company builds an app, say a payroll management tool. Once that code is written, adding one more customer to the platform costs them practically $0.
Right, the profit margins are incredibly fat.
Exactly. But Runway is operating in the frontier AI space, and the physics of their business are just entirely different.
Because generating a video from scratch isn't just, pulling a file from a server.
Yeah.
It requires a massive digital engine to physically build that video pixel by pixel, right?
That's the key right there.
Yeah.
Every single time a user types in a prompt and clicks generate, Runway isn't just executing a few lines of simple code.
You're doing heavy lifting.
Massive heavy lifting. They are firing up huge data centers stacked with tens of thousands of highly specialized graphics processing units, or GPUs.
Which are not cheap.
Not at all. And these facilities consume enormous amounts of electricity. They literally require specialized liquid cooling systems just to keep the servers from melting down.
Wow. So they aren't just paying a few software engineers in a California office. They are essentially renting the equivalent of a digital power plant.
That is exactly it. And that is why the valuation has to be so high. It's basically a survival mechanism at this point.
A survival mechanism?
Yeah, the $5.3 billion valuation reflects massive investor optimism, sure, but it also reflects the brutal physical reality of their operating costs.
To pay for all those servers and cooling systems.
Right. To continuously train these AI models to get better, sharper, and more realistic, they have to burn through hundreds of millions of dollars in computing power. They're constantly raising capital just to pay the utility bills and the cloud providers.
Okay, that makes sense. If they were valued at, say, only $500 million, Raising the necessary $315 million would mean the founders had to give away the entire company.
Precisely. A high valuation allows them to absorb the sheer cost of building this massive infrastructure.
That paints a very different picture. It's less like investing in a trendy tech app and more like funding the construction of the national electrical grid before anyone has even bought a light bulb.
That's a great way to put it.
But here's the thing. If your operating costs are that astronomically high, you cannot survive by just selling $20 monthly subscriptions to independent video creators on the internet. You have to find deep-pocketed clients.
Which forces them to look for entirely new industries to serve well outside of the United States. And the recent expansion data maps this out perfectly.
Right. Research shows they're deploying about $300 million over the next few years to open global hubs in London, Tokyo, and Paris.
Which is a huge move.
Yeah, and expanding to London for broadcasting or Paris for luxury fashion makes intuitive sense. Those industries run on visual advertising. But then there's Tokyo.
Tokyo is a really interesting one.
Right. Looking at the research, they put a highly specific $40 million initial investment into their Tokyo office in May 2026. Why is Japan the linchpin for a video generation company?
Well, Japan is where we see the actual pivot from video app to industrial infrastructure. The data from early 2026 shows Japan quietly became Runway's third largest market globally.
Really? Just out of nowhere?
Basically. But here is the mechanism that should grab every investor's attention. Their enterprise clients in Japan grew by 300% in a single 12-month period.
Wow.
And they did it without having a single local sales team on the ground.
Wait, 300% corporate growth purely organically?
Yeah.
No executives taking clients out to dinner, no massive local marketing push. How does that even happen in enterprise software?
It happens when engineers inside other companies discover a tool that solves a massive, expensive problem, and they just start integrating it through APIs, application programming interfaces.
They just plug the tool directly into their own corporate systems.
Exactly. And in Tokyo, those engineers weren't making commercials. Tokyo is a global powerhouse for heavy manufacturing, automotive engineering, and robotics.
Ah.
And think about the current economic climate. With the U.S. administration under President Trump pushing so heavily to revitalize domestic manufacturing and bring factory jobs back home, the global race to make industrial production cheaper and faster is intensely competitive right now.
So Japanese companies are looking for any edge they can get.
Right. And they found a way to use Runway's technology to drastically cut their research and development costs.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. How exactly does a video generator cut manufacturing costs? I think this brings us to that term you used earlier, the world model.
Yes, the world model. Runway has something called GWM1, or General World Model.
So help me visualize the mechanics here. How does a world model differ from just, a really smart video generator?
So a standard AI video generator operates like a very fast painter. It looks at millions of pictures of a car, and when you ask for a car, it predicts what the next pixel should look like to make a convincing image.
But it doesn't really know how a car works.
Exactly. It doesn't actually know what a car is, it just knows what it looks like on the surface. A world model, on the other hand, is built to understand physical reality.
Like the actual physics.
Yes, it processes millions of hours of video to internalize the rules of physics. Gravity, momentum, light reflection, material stress, spatial relationships, all of it.
So it acts less like a digital painter and more like a physics simulator.
It is essentially a hyper-realistic digital sandbox. Let's say a Japanese robotics lab is trying to teach a new robotic arm how to pick up a fragile glass bottle of water.
Okay.
In the real physical world, training that robot involves thousands of failed attempts. The robot grips too hard, the glass shatters, water gets into the electronics, you have to clean it up, replace the bottle, fix the robot, and start over.
Which sounds incredibly slow and wildly expensive.
It is. But if they plug into a world model...
They can simulate that entire environment digitally, right?
Exactly. The world model understands the fragility of the glass, the fluid dynamics of the water, and the mechanical tension of the robot's grip.
Oh, wow.
So the engineers can run 1 million trial and error simulations inside the AI in a single afternoon for nothing more than the cost of electricity. Once the digital robot learns to pick up the digital glass perfectly, they download that brain into the physical robot, and it works on the first try.
That is a phenomenal shift in economics. It's basically like building a digital wind tunnel. You can crash 1,000 virtual cars to test safety crumple zones without ever having to bend a single piece of real sheet metal.
Exactly. It fundamentally lowers the cost of goods sold for major manufacturers.
Suddenly, a multi-billion-dollar valuation for Runway doesn't seem like a tech bubble at all. It seems like they are selling the foundational testing ground for the future of physical industry.
The total addressable market just completely explodes when you look at it that way. But, there is a transitional phase. While heavy industry and robotics are the long-term end game, the technology's immediate testing ground and its primary source of revenue right now is still the media and entertainment sector.
Hollywood.
Yep. And the mechanics of how Hollywood operates are being completely rewired as we speak.
Let's look at the entertainment data from June 2026. Lionsgate, the major Hollywood studio behind massive franchises like John Wick and The Hunger Games, they didn't just buy a few software licenses for their visual effects team, did they?
No, they went much further. They actually bought a financial stake in Runway to co-develop new intellectual property.
Which is huge. What does that economic shift actually look like for a studio?
Well, historically, AI has been viewed by studios as just a blunt, cost-cutting tool. You use it to remove a boom mic from a shot or, to generate background extras so you don't have to hire 100 actors for a crowd scene.
Right, it was just about making the current process slightly cheaper.
Exactly. But the Lionsgate deal signals something entirely different. It's AI as a co-development infrastructure.
So they aren't just trying to make the next John Wick movie for 10% less money. They are using the AI to fundamentally change how a movie is conceptualized from day one.
Think about the financial risk of a modern blockbuster. When a movie costs $200 million to make, a studio is terrified of taking risks. They only greenlight guaranteed hit sequels, prequels, established comic books.
Because a flop could ruin the studio.
Right. But if an AI world model allows a director to sit in a room, type out scene descriptions, and instantly see a highly realistic, fully lit, dynamically moving draft of an entire movie, the cost of experimentation just plummets.
It allows them to fail cheaply. If a script idea doesn't look good on screen, they find out in 3 hours instead of 3 years. And it costs them nothing but server time.
That completely shifts the supply curve. By dramatically lowering the financial floor required to produce high-quality visual content, studios can afford to take risks on niche, weird, highly original concepts.
They can monetize their massive back catalogs in ways that were financially impossible before.
Because the barrier to entry has evaporated.
I mean, I see the economic upside for the studios, but there is a massive societal elephant in the room here.
The trust factor.
Exactly. If we are entering an environment where anyone from a Hollywood director to a teenager with a laptop can generate hyper-realistic, physically accurate video from a text prompt, the concept of seeing is believing completely dies. How does society function when nobody trusts the video they are looking at?
This raises an important question, and it is the single biggest friction point for the entire technology. We are already seeing this friction in the market.
Like with the legacy news organizations.
Exactly. Look at recent analysis of BBC Studios. They are actively using Runway's tools internally for pre-visualization. They use the AI to map out complex documentary shots or test lighting setups before sending a physical crew to the rainforest.
But they are keeping it strictly behind the scenes, right?
Completely. They are incredibly hesitant to put any AI-generated pixels on the actual broadcast screen. And for good reason. A brand like the BBC trades entirely on the currency of factual trust.
If an audience thinks even a 5-second clip of a nature documentary is synthetic, the entire brand's credibility shatters.
And the data shows just how hard it is to protect that credibility. A recent analysis tested public perception, and everyday people could only distinguish AI-generated video from authentic video about 57.1% of the time.
Wow. 57.1% is essentially a coin flip. The human eye has officially been defeated by the algorithm.
So what is the mechanical solution here? How do you mathematically prove a video is real?
Well, the industry is trying to build solutions through cryptography. Things like invisible watermarks embedded in the pixels, or unalterable metadata that travels with the file to show exactly what camera shot it and when.
But I'm guessing that's not free.
Not at all. Here is the economic reality managing trust is going to become a massive financial burden.
Because embedding, tracking, and verifying those cryptographic watermarks requires its own computing power and its own infrastructure. Exactly. You are adding layers of friction and cost to every piece of media produced. A technology that was supposed to make video creation frictionless ends up creating a massive, expensive new industry just to verify reality.
So the tech solves one problem, the cost of production. but creates an entirely new, potentially more expensive problem, which is the cost of verification.
Right.
And that issue of establishing origin and trust leads us directly into the most dangerous area for investors looking at this space, the legal risks.
Oh, absolutely. If you are evaluating a company for investment, legal ambiguity is radioactive. You cannot build a $5 billion industrial infrastructure on a foundation of stolen materials.
Let's look at the real-world legal battles happening right now. According to reports from Reuters, in February 2026, a YouTube creator named David Gardner filed a major class action lawsuit against Runway.
Yeah, that was a huge moment.
The core of his claim is that the company scraped and downloaded thousands of his videos and videos from countless other creators to train their AI models. And they did this without asking for permission, without offering compensation, and without offering a way to opt out.
In the financial markets, we look at this through the lens of a discount factor.
What does that mean exactly?
When an investor calculates the future value of a company, they mathematically reduce that value based on the severity of the risks the company faces. Copyright infringement is the ultimate discount factor in generative AI. It is the concept of poisoned data.
Poisoned data. Meaning, if you build a house using lumber that you stole from your neighbor, it doesn't matter how beautiful the house is. The neighbor has a legal claim to tear it down.
It's a very real threat to their enterprise business model. Think back to those Japanese robotics companies or a global American auto manufacturer. If a massive corporation integrates Runway's world model to design a new physical product or run a $100 million global advertising campaign, and a federal court later rules that the AI was trained on stolen, copyrighted material, the legal liability doesn't just stop at the AI company.
It affects the enterprise client.
Exactly.
So the auto manufacturer will suddenly get sued by 1,000 independent artists who claim their stolen work helped design the car. An enterprise client is not going to tolerate that kind of legal exposure. They will simply unplug the API and walk away.
Which is why the provenance of data, being able to mathematically prove exactly where every piece of training data came from and showing a clear chain of legal ownership, is becoming the most valuable asset in the AI space.
So what does this all mean for the beginner investor listening right now? You're an everyday American investor watching this massive shift. You see the incredible potential of world models to revolutionize manufacturing in Hollywood, but you also see the insane computing costs and the looming threat of massive copyright lawsuits.
It's a lot to weigh.
It really is.
Yeah.
And you can't just log into your brokerage account and buy shares of Runway because they are a private entity funded by venture capital. So how does a regular person actually invest in this transition without exposing their portfolio to the radioactive risk of a single startup?
The smartest way to navigate this is to look past the private startups and invest in the surrounding ecosystem. We can map this out as the AI media stack.
The AI media stack, I like that.
Yeah, it consists of 4 distinct layers of publicly traded companies that are capturing the value of this technology.
Okay, let's break down that stack. Layer 1.
Layer 1 is the infrastructure. We talked about how these world models require the equivalent of digital power plants to function.
The heavy lifting.
Right. If you believe in the future of the software, you invest in the physical hardware that makes it possible. That means looking at the publicly traded companies designing the high-performance GPUs. It means looking at the massive real estate investment trusts that own the physical data centers. It even means looking at industrial companies that manufacture the specialized liquid cooling systems required to keep those data centers from overheating, or the utility companies providing the raw electricity.
That makes total sense. You're investing in the concrete, the copper wire, and the silicon that the entire industry relies on, regardless of which specific AI startup wins the software race. What is Layer 2?
Layer 2 is the platforms. These are the established, publicly traded software giants. Companies like Adobe, for instance.
Our household names.
Right. They already own the daily workflow for millions of professional designers, video editors, and corporate marketing teams. Instead of trying to build a new world model from scratch, they are integrating generative AI directly into the tools people already use.
And crucially, a company like Adobe has the capital to build their AI using legally licensed, unpoisoned data.
Precisely. They offer enterprise clients a legally safe, indemnified version of the technology. They absorb the copyright risk, which makes their platforms incredibly sticky for massive corporations.
Okay, so that's infrastructure and platforms, Layer 3 of the stack.
Layer 3 is the IP owners, the intellectual property. In a world where the cost of generating high-quality video drops to near zero, the actual execution of a video becomes a commodity. What retains immense value is the underlying story and the characters.
The raw materials.
Exactly. So you look at the major publicly traded studios, Disney, Lionsgate, Warner Bros., they hold a century's worth of legally protected characters, universes, and storylines.
And the AI just makes it cheaper for them to use them.
Yes. As AI drastically lowers their production costs, these companies are uniquely positioned to monetize their massive libraries faster, producing localized content or interactive games for global markets with profit margins they've never seen before.
Okay, and finally, layer 4.
Layer 4 is the applications. This brings us full circle back to the Japanese robotics labs and the American auto manufacturers.
The heavy industry side.
Exactly. You look at the publicly traded companies in heavy industries that are aggressively adopting these AI world models to slash their research and development budgets. The companies that learn to simulate reality the fastest will bring better, safer, and cheaper physical products to market years ahead of their competitors.
It is genuinely fascinating to see how deeply interconnected this all is. We started by looking at a single private app that makes quirky videos on the internet. And by following the mechanics of how it actually works, we've mapped out a fundamental shift that touches semiconductor manufacturing, global energy grids, the economics of Hollywood blockbusters, and the future of industrial robotics.
Because that is the hallmark of a true general-purpose technology. It doesn't just create a new product category, it alters the foundational economic math for almost every other industry it touches.
We've covered incredible ground today. We've broken down why generating a simple video requires the energy footprint of a small city, which drives these massive multi-billion-dollar valuations. We've explored how world models like GWM1 are moving beyond predicting pixels to actually simulating the laws of physics for heavy industry.
Right.
And we've examined the very real speed bumps, from the 57% trust factor problem to the radioactive legal risks of poison data.
As we close out, I want to leave you with one final dynamic to consider. As these world models become exponentially more accurate at simulating reality, think about what happens to the broader economy when the cost of trial and error effectively drops to zero.
That's a profound thought.
If you can perfectly test a new skyscraper's structural integrity or a new surgical robot's precision millions of times in a digital sandbox for pennies, who are the ultimate winners in that economy? Is it the massive legacy corporations who currently dominate because they have the budget to afford expensive physical testing? Or does this completely level the playing field, allowing small, bold teams of engineers to out-innovate the giants because their ideas can finally be tested for free?
That is an incredible question to ponder. The ultimate democratization of trial and error. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.